Early last year, members of the United States Senate and Congress who were former members of the U.S. military and intelligence communities actually came out and spoke out against Donald Trump and reminded those who are currently serving in the military of their obligation to the United States Constitution and its freedoms and their military units over Donald Trump and his regime, that they had the duty and the obligation to disobey any unlawful orders from Donald Trump and his administration. Since then, they've been called traitors, they've been maligned by Trump and his supporters, but all of them are my respect, because it takes a lot of guts to speak out against Donald Trump, especially if you're serving as a congressman or a senator, and more to the point, as a uniformed member of the armed forces. Not too recently, this officer, Major Jason Watson of the United States Air Force, called for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to be impeached, convicted, and removed. It's not the fact that he did on a social media posting on that, but he did very publicly and very loudly. In full Air Force dress uniform on the Capitol steps, he gave the speech that should rock every member of the United States military right now to the core.
My name is Jason Watson. I'm an active duty major in the United States Air Force. However, who I am is immaterial. In the grand scheme of things, I'm just a nobody. What matters far more than who I am is what I have to say and the price I'm willing to pay to say it. I, Jason Paul Watson, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter. So help me God. I first swore this oath over 20 years ago upon entering basic cadet training at the United States Air Force Academy in late June of 2005. I've repeated it many times over since then. The oath of office means everything to me. It is foundational to our system of governance in the United States. The oath ensures that officials of our government owe allegiance not to any individual or political party, but to our Constitution and the democratic republic it represents. Our Constitution binds us all together as Americans. Like countless veterans before me and military members serving now, I have devoted my life in service to our democratic republic, always doing my best to honor my oath and protect America against foreign threats. But the greatest threat to our democratic republic is not a foreign one. It is us, we the people, not just the left or just the right or just the center, all of us together define who we are as Americans. And like it or not, we have all played a part, myself included, in getting ourselves into this mess we are all in. The burden of that culpability is much heavier for some amongst us than others. Undeniably, and for those with a lion's share of guilt, such as those currently running the executive branch of the government, the bill must come due. But all of us have a share. For the past 18 months, we the people have allowed the highest levels of the executive branch of the federal government to violate our Constitution and their oaths to it with impunity. When the President of the United States orders military action against foreign countries, absent an emergency scenario where American interests are under imminent, dire threat, as was done with Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran, that's an unconstitutional usurpation of Congress's authority and a violation of the War Powers Clause. These violations resulted in the deaths of 13 service members and injuries of hundreds more. For this, the President and Vice President must be impeached, convicted, and removed. When the President of the United States grants an unelected mega donor sweeping authority to shut down large swaths of our federal government, along with unrestricted access to our government databases, that's an unconstitutional circumvention of Congress's advise and consent authority under the Appointments Clause and Congress's power of the purse under the Appropriations Clause. These violations exposed every American's personal sensitive data to leaks and exploitation, illegally terminated tens of thousands of federal civil servants, and crippled support for Americans for medical care and disaster preparedness, and by far most tragically, resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of the world's most impoverished people with inhumanely abrupt cessation of U.S. aid. For this, the President and Vice President must be impeached, convicted, and removed. When the President of the United States directs the Department of Homeland Security to deny hundreds of people any due process before illegally detaining them and sending them to a foreign prison notorious for human rights abuses, that's a violation of our Fifth and Eighth Amendment rights. Most people sent to CTP never committed any violent crimes in their entire lives, but are being defamed as violent criminals to this day as a pretext for the torture they suffered in El Salvador, paid for with U.S. taxpayer dollars. For this, the President and Vice President must be impeached, convicted, and removed. When the President of the United States sponsors violence on the American people, engaged in their constitutional right to peacefully assemble and protest, that's a violation of our First Amendment rights. Pastors praying for DHS agents violently attacked without provocation, a legal observer losing an eye after being shot with a non-lethal by an ICE agent, a woman attempting to follow chaotic and contradictory DHS agent instructions fatally gunned down, a subdued man that posed no threat fatally shot after having his unbrandished firearm removed, with statements by high-ranking cabinet members also violating our Second Amendment rights. For this, the President and Vice President must be impeached, convicted, and removed. There are innumerable more impeachable offenses that I could cover. Denying congressional oversight of immigrant detention centers that look increasingly like CTP. Suing institutions like media, colleges, and law firms for billions of dollars while abusing the authorities of the executive branch agencies to extort settlements. Allowing a mega donor to advertise products on the White House front lawn. Trading pardons for donations. Levying illegal tariffs. Weaponizing the Department of Justice against political adversaries while ignoring crimes of supporters and enablers. Attempting to reverse birthright citizenship through executive order. For all of these high crimes and misdemeanors, the President and Vice President must be impeached, convicted, and removed. The constitutional impeachment process is our best pathway to restore fidelity to our Constitution. This is why I'm here, standing in solidarity with Representative Green. I'm not here because I'm a Democrat or because I share his policy positions. I'm not a Democrat and know next to nothing about his policies. I'm here with him because Representative Green is the only member of Congress that has demonstrated the courage and conviction to invoke Rule 9 and force a vote on articles of impeachment. If Congress followed his example, we could remove the entire Trump administration. But Congress remains unconvinced of the urgency and necessity for them to honor their oaths. So we must persuade them with our unrelenting, uncompromising civil resistance. I am calling on average Americans everywhere to peacefully exercise your First Amendment rights en masse every day until this administration is removed and our democratic republic is restored. I believe in America. I believe in us. If just a nobody like me can take a stand for our Constitution and our democratic republic, then you can too. I hope you will join me in the defense of our republic.
I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for what I'm about to say. Then despite my words of support and honor for the military of our country, I have nothing but the greatest respect for what Major Watson did. I may not agree completely on how he did, but I understand the why he did, considering the fact that more voices like him need to be said. And I understand exactly what he's risking by saying those words. Under the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, subsection 888, Article 88, contempt towards officials. Any commissioned officer who uses contemptuous words against the President, Vice President, Congress, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of a Military Department, Secretary of Homeland Security, or the Governor, Legislator of any state, Commonwealth, or in possession of which he is on his duty or shall be punished by court-martial may direct. Under these regulations, Major Watson's career in the United States Armed Forces is over, and the possibility he could be going to prison. But I applaud him and I honor him for making a supreme sacrifice. This man is 3 steps away from being a general in the Air Force, but he sees what is going on in this country and especially what Donald Trump is doing in Iran that's cost the lives of American airmen and innocent civilians that were lost because of our attack on them. So I may not agree with how he did in full uniform on the Capitol steps, making a speech that people would record and take photos of, but I understand the reason why he did. And I understand his bravery as to what he did. He probably thought about not doing this. What would the consequences? However, seeing what we see now under Donald Trump, we don't have a choice anymore. We can either ignore what Trump has done or speak out against it. Because quite honestly, we can't sit on the sidelines anymore. Sacrifices have to be made. This man sacrificed his future, his career in the Air Force, perhaps his freedom. What are you willing to sacrifice to call out what Donald Trump is doing to our country, to the world? CTP, no truth. God bless. Peace to the left, justice to the right.